In 2024, video game publishing giants Konami and relative newcomer Bloober Team collaborated on Silent Hill 2 Remake. It was perhaps one of last year's biggest surprises in gaming. I too was caught off guard by just how good it was. With amazing characters, atmosphere, strong writing, excellent sound design, and unnerving terror all packed in, it was even a strong contender for Game of the Year. In fact, if it wasn't for Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, I would have chosen Silent Hill 2 for that award. Konami seeks to continue this momentum with Silent Hill F in an effort to resurrect the revered horror franchise. Set in a rural valley of 1960s Japan, with a story written by Japanese horror writer Ryukishi07 and a soundtrack composed by series veteran Akira Yamaoka, Silent Hill F is a reinvention of the series that still upholds the foundations of its past. It's this direction of keeping the pillars of the franchise while experimenting with new ideas and themes that makes this my pick so far for Game of the Year. Hi, my name is Jay and welcome to Good Games Dude. 2025 has produced a slew of amazing, award-worthy video games that there's even more still likely to come out at the end of this year. In fact, there have been so many great games that a few of them are likely to get snubbed or even go unmentioned come award season. But for me, as the fall video game season comes to an end, there's one that has risen above the rest, and it's gotta be Silent Hill F. That's not to downplay or eliminate the other great games that have come out this year, like Ghost of Yotei, Death Stranding 2, or Hollow Knight Silksong. But Silent Hill F's narrative, music, combat, and performances are all top-notch and deserve praise. But what really makes it extraordinary is its presentation and how the game's intricate form of storytelling mirrors the themes and messages it's trying to convey. Silent Hill F captures the essence of what made the series so iconic in the first place. It's surreal, terrifying, abstract, highly interpretive, yet hypnotic in its beauty, making me come back over and over again, delivering something that feels unlike anything else I've ever played. Whether you've already played through this multiple times, or still on the outside, fearfully looking in, join me as I talk about why Silent Hill F deserves to be in the Game of the Year conversation. The main character of Silent Hill F, Shimizu Hinako, starts off the game as a conflicted Japanese schoolgirl. Dealing with abusive parents, a family that has left her, friends that keep their distance, and an uncertain future beyond high school, these are the unfortunate, but also not uncommon, everyday struggles too many are familiar with. Although those problems are trivial compared to the fog and the monsters that come rolling in right from the very get-go. It's up to the player controlling Hinako to try to navigate and escape the fog of Silent Hill and battle against the monsters, serving as metaphors for real-life struggles. It's a game that deals with heavy themes of abuse, religion, manipulation, gender, marriage, mental health, and personality disorders. Silent Hill F can be a very emotionally challenging game, so much so that I don't blame them for putting a warning up front, telling players to take a break or talk to friends and loved ones if it gets too personal. But that's also very apt, considering that Silent Hill has always been a series to tackle very disturbing but important topics. But even then, the message behind these subjects and the interpretation of them is entirely up to the player. The game never gets too heavy-handed about these subjects, and the meaning of these events is never fully explained. Every single individual who plays this game will come away with different understandings of the events that play out. But that's the beauty of it. For those who believe this to be just a surreal horror story about a girl fighting monsters, that's an entirely valid theory. I can't argue against that. But for those who truly dive deep into the game's Japanese mythology, history, symbolism, and cultural context, the game's meaning could be interpreted in a myriad of ways, with the game giving credence to all of them. And that's what makes this game so poignant, is it's up to the player to uncover the glimmer of light that beckons just beyond the nightmare. Switching over to the gameplay and combat side, Silent Hill F continues the series' tradition of simplistic combat encounters mixed with horror and puzzle solving. For Silent Hill purists, they might view this game as having too much combat, putting less of a focus on the scares and more of a focus on the action. Other fans and newcomers might argue that this game puts too little focus on the combat, making it simplistic or too much like a Souls-like. But for me, I think this game struck the right balance between horror and combat. It surprisingly has melee combat that is complex enough to be challenging, especially on harder difficulties, that give it a true survival horror experience. And there were still so many slow, tense moments that forced me to check and make sure that I didn't poop myself. As you go around exploring these somewhat open and countryside areas, the player can pick up items and scavenge around for melee weapons, allowing them to defend themselves. With these weapons, players have to manage a stamina bar, similar to a Dark Souls game, that drains with every light or heavy attack, or from dodging and sprinting. But Hinako also has another mechanic called Sanity, which allows a player to charge up an extremely powerful swing of their weapon, and also provides a bigger opportunity window for players to strike back with a defensive counter. I was pleasantly surprised at how easy it was to comprehend the game's sanity mechanic, yet how satisfying it was to pull off. It's a system that is costly, but allows players to either double down on their offensive or defensive maneuvers. And these attacks come with extremely gratifying sound effects and hit stuns that are fun the first and 728th time around. I do have to admit that I wish there were a few more enemy types that would help to vary up combat just a bit more. However, I was still surprised by how many weapons and boss fights there were throughout the game that did spice up my playthrough. Even then, that still wasn't the biggest surprise of the game. For those who still want to play this game completely blind, don't worry. Skip ahead to this part of the video, displayed on screen or in the description, and you'll still get a full gist of my thoughts on the game. But if you're okay with spoilers or have already played it, let's talk more about the story. Something I didn't know before going into this was just how many times I had to beat the game to fully understand it. You need to play through the game at least twice. Upon beating the game the first time around, players are given an ending, but it's not the quote-unquote good ending. It still leaves many questions up in the air about what the story is all about, with a lot more mystery surrounding the real events that aren't just hallucinogenic. At first, I looked at this as being almost like a chore. Do I really have to go through the same thing again? I thought. I'm not much one for replaying my older games, especially ones that I just beat. But once I began my New Game Plus, it was mind-blowing how different the entire experience was. It wasn't just the ending that was different. The whole thing was different. New cutscenes and dialogue were unlocked. I encountered new combat areas and boss fights. Different puzzles were available. New documents and notes were scattered around for me to pick up. What this did was, it made me really question what was real and what was not. It forced me to go back and look at my old footage to see what was different and compare the two. It played with my expectations and changed how I remembered and looked at the game, its characters, its themes, and what it was trying to convey. Silent Hill 2 Remake made a brilliant addition, where the Bloober team hinted at the remake not just being a remake, but an actual sequel to the original. What if James, the main protagonist, was actually still stuck in Silent Hill all those years later? What if Silent Hill 2 Remake was James still attempting to get out of his hellish purgatory? A piercing reminder of just how hard it can be to break down our own personal demons. By having the player go back and replay through the story more than once in Silent Hill F, it replicates that same hellish form of penance we sometimes have to go through. Just like in real life, sometimes we have to go back and replay certain traumatic experiences in our heads if we want to uncover the truth. We might discover something about others or ourselves that we never really thought about. And Silent Hill F shows how our own personal sins, addictions, and old habits don't always go away so easily. In a way, Silent Hill F is the ultimate roguelike experience. One has to keep revisiting this bleak story if they're ever to truly come out of it as a new individual. But in a way, it's also true to that classic experience. It's a series that challenges you amidst the bleak and the disturbing to find hope and beauty amidst the terror. Silent Hill F is not an easy game to describe. It can also be even tougher to convince people to give it a try. With its bleak themes, somewhat simplistic combat, and convoluted storytelling, it can be a hard sell for some. But for those willing to give it a shot, those same criticisms are the exact reasons why Silent Hill F is unlike anything else out there. Silent Hill F crafts a new path forward, while still re-examining how the real monsters are the ones we create within the fog of our minds. I understand why Silent Hill F may not be everyone's cup of tea. In fact, I'll be very surprised if this game even gets much recognition at the end of the year. But for me, it's an experience I'll never forget. It's a lot like poetry, where one can't just read through it once and understand the full picture. One has to go through it again and again, multiple times, and by doing so, more and more messages and interpretations become realized. We bring in more of our own ideas, experiences, and preconceived notions into it. Hopefully, years down the line, Silent Hill F will be looked at as a classic, the same way Silent Hill 2 is. Because for me, it really is one of, if not the best games I've played all year, and one that deserves to be called one of the best in the series. Which is why Silent Hill F gets my rating of a 5 out of 5. Thank you so much for watching. It's been a while since I've put up a video, but I want to thank you so much for sticking around with me and coming back to check this video out. Please consider subscribing, as I've got more videos coming up soon on the best that video games have to offer.